Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about the 5 most common mistakes for the Castle Age. We're going to talk about relics, use of armor units, when to go castle. We're also going to talk about trash units in a Castle Age setting, and keeps. Hope you guys enjoy this series, and let's jump right into it. When do we go Castle Age in Age of Empires 4? Well, we go Castle Age if it would give us an advantage that staying in feudal wouldn't. That's one way to conceptualize it. We want to stay in feudal if it is necessary for us to do so. But if we're playing a civilization like the HRE that gains so many benefits from going Castle Age, then we want to try to go for that because it's a main strategy. But if we're playing another civilization like the Rus that is both strong in castle but also in feudal because of their knights, then it's really important that we use that to our advantage. We don't want to make panic moves. A lot of people, when they play Castle Age, they make panic moves. And so they stay in feudal. Maybe they lose all their army and then they go Castle Age. That is okay to do if you gain an immediate advantage from doing so. Let's say you're playing as the HRE. You've defended a push like this. And I've made a couple of men-at-arms. I've been pressuring his base a little bit. And so his units are very defensive at the moment. He's now gone into a more of a turtle style build. I know he's going to try to get Castle Age as well because his feudal age pressure hasn't worked for him. He's not going to do it anymore. I'm going to try to get castle here as well. Not just to match him, but because I'm HRE, I want to get relics. And so, I have a couple of men-at-arms. They're constantly around his base to keep forcing the turtle. But I'm not gonna overinvest on men-at-arms because I can't really win with that in feudal age. And so I go Castle Age because I want to take the relics, and I have the tempo to do so. So those are things to consider when going castle. You don't want to go castle if your opponent is rushing you or has more army than you or is clearly indicating that they want to go and attack you. Therefore, always scout before you go castle and think, am I going to gain something? Or could this be a GG if I go Castle Age? If you decide to go Castle Age, you have to be aware that your opponent will probably rush you. You're spending 1800 resources to get Castle Age that haven't gone into units. And the moment that you go Castle Age, your opponent will actually know that you didn't make units worth of 1800 resources. Instead, you spent them on getting a tech advantage or another type of advantage. It's okay to go Castle Age as a sort of panic move if it's gonna help you when you go castle. So I make the Farimba garrison here because it's gonna allow me to make units from gold, and since I have trade up and running, then that is a win condition for me. I can get the Farimba up, I can make a lot of units really quickly, but I have to protect the gold. If my opponent knew that I had trade up and running, he would immediately go for the trade the moment that he saw the Farimba, because the trade allows the Farimba to produce. This is also why people should know that Burgrave doesn't automatically mean that you're going to have a million MAA in your base. What it means is you built 5 barracks and you got the tech advantage. And so you can't make units unless you have the eco. If you're gonna try to take out a Castle Age opponent and you're still in feudal and you have the army advantage, go take out their eco, because they can't make units even if they have the production buildings if they don't have the resources. Another very common mistake for people who are playing Castle Age is that they do not go for the relics. Relics are game changing, and for some civs they allow them to stay alive later on in the game. You're playing as the HRE, you're gonna get a lot of gold if you have the Landsknechts Cathedral. Are you playing as the Chinese? You're gonna get a lot of gold later on from pagodas that also yield other types of resources from the relics. Relics are just super important in general because it's technically free workers because it's free gold, and so you could say, well, they make 80 gold a minute, and if you're playing a HRE with Landsknechts Cathedral, they make 160. This will allow you to make gold heavy units, higher quality units, and your eco isn't taking a hit from spending too much on that because you've taken the relics. So It's really important that when you're playing the Castle Age, you take the relics, and it's gonna be one of the main objectives unless you're gonna go for an all-in in Castle Age. So, Sacred Sites are also very important. They yield 100 gold per minute. Relics yield 80, with Landsknechts it's 160, and later on when you get Tithe Barns, which is this upgrade right here, you're also gonna get 30 food, 30 wood, and 30 stone per minute. And that is really important later on for your eco to thrive. The next mistake that people make in Castle Age is the overuse of men-at-arms. I want to talk about when to use men-at-arms. The most common way you use men-at-arms is if you have a tech advantage, which means you have Castle Age and your opponent is Feudal Age. Most civilizations, excluding Knight Civs, are very bad at dealing with men-at-arms in Feudal Age, and they need a lot of army to do so. Men-at-arms in the Castle Age against a Feudal Age opponent is incredibly strong for denying a lot of eco early on, or just fighting in general, but the moment that your opponent is going to age up to Castle and they get access to knights and crossbows, which effectively counters men-at-arms, then they're irrelevant, because they scale super bad. It's really important when you are in Castle Age that you are making knights when your opponent is also in Castle Age. Of course, unit comps is a hot topic because there's so many ways that you can play compositions in this game. I would say it's important that you also use trash units when you are in Castle Age. This leads us to talk about unit compositions in the Castle Age. So, we all know about the classic men-at-arms, spam, really good at countering Feudal Age opponents. It's good against pretty much anything that doesn't have anti-armor. So, it's really important that when you are making men-at-arms, like I said before, don't make them if your opponent is in Castle. Now, I want to talk about common unit compositions in Castle Age. One common unit compositions, and this is not only for Knight Civ, this could be Malians as well, is archers and knights. Some civilizations like the English, and especially the Malians, whom have poison arrow, make this composition even stronger. Knights, really good at dealing with frontline units, not spearmen, not crossbow. The archers are really good at dealing with spearmen and crossbow. These have a high base damage, the knights. They have a high amount of health. The archers, it's pretty much the opposite, but they gain bonus damage against the counters of the knights. Therefore, this composition is so popular. Next up, we've got a very niche one. This one is used when you're playing very defensively, when you're playing boom style, and so it's a very defensive unit composition. It's hard to attack or harass with this one. It's really bad at doing so, but it's super strong at countering siege, ranged, and cavalry. And therefore, this composition is also very cost effective. It's good in Imperial as well, because spearmen don't cost anything, and mangonels are really effective. So as long as you can defend the siege, then this composition is really good. So this leads us to the most powerful HRE composition in the game. This is a composition that beats pretty much everything and is still only a pure melee composition. I am highlighting this one because even though you're not playing as the HRE, it's so important to understand unit compositions. And so we have a unit composition here that has Horsemen. This will counter ranged units and siege. We have Spearmen that will counter cavalry, and we have Landsknechts that will counter Spearmen. Most opponents will make Spearmen to deal with the Horsemen, and so you add Landsknechts accordingly. Prelates, on the other hand, are also a vital part of this composition. They give you the access to Inspired Warriors, which is a buff that adds 15 damage and 1 armor, and this is 15% more damage and 1 armor, and this is super strong for any type of composition for the HRE. And so when you're facing compositions like this, these become really important, because Spearmen will deal with the Horsemen, the Mangonels will deal with the very low health units here, being the Landsknechts and the Spearmen. And so if you mass 4 or 5 Mangonels defensively, this can't really hurt you. And so compositions like this are really just super important when you're playing in the Castle Age. If you go for a full range composition with only crossbows and archers, all the opponent has to do is add a mangonel. That is why you have to think about what's the next type of unit that I can make. So constantly scout your opponent, what are they making, and then adapt. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is going to be keeps and how you can use keeps defensively, offensively, and how to guard resources and pathways for your opponent to your base. So, keeps can be used defensively. You could place a keep right here in your base. A keep is really strong because it's a huge defensive building with a lot of great upgrades. We all know that. But if you can research oil, then you can defend against fire lancers. If you can put it on important resources or production buildings, then you can guard them. And then if you are on the back foot, that can help you get back into a game. You can also put keeps in the front of your base, or in the middle of the map rather. Not too close to your opponent, so they don't make trebuchets and just barge it down. But if you place them correctly, you can use them to attack as well. That being said, many people will attack an enemy base. Let's say I attacked his base here. I push his eco off, his farms, and then I popped a keep whilst I had all my units going to his base. The keep will then be set up whilst I was defending the villagers, and then he has to deal with both a keep and an army at his front door. The last example here is how a keep is used in fights. So, if I have a keep this close to a fight, I want to try to make it so that the fight is not here, where the keep is not effective, but closer, where the keep is effective. I can convert villagers, and this is an important part, convert villagers to military units. Technically not, but they act as archers inside this keep. And so the moment that I have this keep filled up with 15 villagers, that is essentially 15 more military that is present at this battle, firing down at the enemy units. And so what you'll see here is the keep is firing down on the units. I'm taking a fight under my keep. He is not supposed to do so because he's essentially fighting against a larger army, and he will not be able to take out a keep at this point. So, keeps are very, very important, and if you use them correctly, they can help you win more games. I hope you've learned something new today. I hope you can use this theory and apply it to your own games. Win more games in Castle Age. Maybe not even go Castle Age, because it might not be the best thing to do. If you have any more questions, ask them in the comment section below. I'll be trying my best to answer all of your comments. Got a lot of feedback on the last video. That's really nice. And yeah, until next time, have a good one.